It's that time of the year when Dollar Tree has their fairy garden supplies out. I have 3 different fairy garden ideas that I think will spark your creativity. Some of the items that I'll be using in today's fairy gardens come from Dollar Tree. This is a cute log cabin, and then we have a tree house. They also have a variety of miniatures. They come in packages of 2 or 3. You just choose the ones that you like. I won't be using any real plants in my fairy garden, so I will be using some Dollar Tree artificial succulents, as well as some of their decorative rocks. They have some of these black rocks that are semi-flat, and then they have some decorative stones. For pops of color, I'll be using their miniature bumblebees and ladybugs, as well as some green reindeer moss. If you have a Dollar General nearby, they have a variety of miniatures for your fairy garden at $1 a piece. They have a little bit more detail than the ones at Dollar Tree, but you only get 1 in a package. They also have some larger ones, like this beautiful sunflower with the red cardinal, and it has a ladybug. They are a little bit pricier though. This one was $3. Dollar Tree does carry mushrooms, but I'll be using these from Hobby Lobby, and I did pick these up when they had a 40% off sale. For our first garden, I'm using a faux wood plate from Dollar General for $1. I want mine to have a bit of height to it, so I'm also using one of Dollar Tree's matte black candle holders. I'm going to place this on the bottom of the plate. For all of today's projects and for video purposes, I'm using hot glue. But if you're going to place this outside in warmer weather, I do recommend that you also use a permanent glue like E6000 just to make sure that it doesn't pop off, and it will be able to withstand the elements. I chose this log cabin house. I'm going to place that right towards the back in the center of the plate. And on each side of that, I'm using some of Dollar Tree's succulents that have the clips on the bottom. I'm just going to pull those off and hot glue one on each side to give it some height so they almost look like trees. I'm going to glue some decorative rocks around each one to not only cover up the hot glue, but it's going to help support those succulents and have them stand up straight. I'm going to place those around the entire succulent, and this is how it's looking so far. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. There's something very magical about creating fairy gardens, and you can really express your creativity. Dollar Tree's flat black stones will be perfect to create a walkway and will go well with our woodsy theme for this fairy garden. Now that we have our focal point, it's time to add in those decorative touches like this beautiful water spigot. This one came from Dollar General. For a little bit of whimsy, I'm going to add this small windmill right in front of that water spigot. And on the opposite side, this adorable dog in a hammock, and it says do not disturb. This came from Dollar General, and they also had one that had a bunny in the hammock. I'm going to add these mushrooms for a pop of color on each side of the door. This is how it's looking so far. I do have something in particular that I want to make to sit right here, so let's get started on that. Using a battery-operated votive and some of Dollar Tree's decorative rocks, I'm going to hot glue those around the base of the votive. Just trying to make sure that when I set it down, it will sit flat. It doesn't have to be perfect, and don't worry about the gaps in the middle because we're going to fill those in. We're creating a mini campfire. Look how adorable it's looking already. I'm going to fill those gaps in with some Spanish moss. I'm going to cut mine down to be very small pieces and then hot glue that in between all of those gaps. Fill it in, and then I'll add a little bit at the very top as well. You could stop at this point and it looks absolutely adorable, but I wanted to add some logs to the top of mine, so I went out in my yard and grabbed a very small branch. I'm going to cut that down with my miter shears and hot glue this on top of that Spanish moss. Then cut some smaller pieces to tuck down in there. And this is how it's looking. Now I'm not going to glue this to the fairy garden because I want to be able to turn this candle on and off. We're using one of Dollar Tree's glass fish bowls, 2 different colored crushed rocks. I'm going to use this beautiful teal and white. I want to mix mine together so I can have a variety of color. You don't need to put a lot in there. You just want to have a nice base. Mix it around and press it down firmly because no glue is required for this project. We're going to take our figurines. These came from Dollar General. I have a cute fairy, a gnome, and a sign, but you pick the ones of your choice and you can nestle them right down into the crushed rock. This would be a great project to do with the little ones in your life, and they could change it out with their favorite figurines. For the base of this indoor fairy garden, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's 12-inch wood panels. You can find this in their plus section. I want mine to have a darker color, so I'm taking an acrylic paint in the color Coffee Bean. Mine was a bit old and clumpy, so I'm going to water that down a bit. This is a great way to use up some old paint. Mix that really thoroughly, and I'm going to paint this entire piece, including all of those outside edges. You can also use this as a stain if it's a little too dark. You can take a paper towel and go back over it and blend that out, but it will lighten up once it dries. I'm also using one of Dollar Tree's mini terracotta pots and some reindeer moss. So I'm going to flip mine over, and I originally started by adding some hot glue and pressing the reindeer moss onto the hot glue. However, as the hot glue was drying, I did not like that. You could see some of the glue popping up at the top. So I decided to take some of Aleene's tacky glue, and you can find this at Dollar Tree. Spread that all over the terracotta pot with an old paintbrush, and then I compress that moss directly on top of that, and then you'll just let it dry. So I'm not going to do the very top, or it's actually the bottom of the terracotta pot, because that's going to become the top. We're using this as a base for one of the fairy garden tree houses. Once you've allowed the glue to dry, you can always go back and trim up some of that moss. We're going to use this gorgeous tree house from Dollar Tree, and it sits perfectly on top of this mini terracotta pot. I'm going to attach that using a good amount of hot glue. And look how adorable this is. So now that it has some height to it, you know, our little fairies and gnomes need to be able to get in that door. So let's create a way for them to do that. Using some craft sticks, I'm going to cut the rounded ends off of 2 of those, and then measure and cut those at 3 inches. To do that, I'm using my handheld miter shears, and if you're interested in those, I have that listed in my Amazon store. That makes the cutting of this wood so easy. Then you'll take a 3rd craft stick, cut that rounded end off, measure and cut 3 1-inch pieces. I'm going to use a square so I can keep everything lined up, and if you haven't guessed, we are making a mini ladder. So once you have your little pieces there, you can glue them down with some hot glue, and once your glue sets, I like to go over mine with a little piece of sandpaper just to smooth out any of those rough edges. I decided to paint mine with that same watered down paint mixture, and I'm going to get all sides, set it to the side, and let it dry. Now that all of the pieces are dry, it's time to assemble our fairy garden. I'm going to place that treehouse on the back corner. Again, I'm using hot glue, but if you're going to set this on your porch, you will definitely want to put a more permanent glue so it does not pop off later. Then I'm using 2 of these mini succulent planters to put on each side of the treehouse. These came from Michael's and they were less than $1 a piece. Then using one of the gates from Dollar Tree, I want to place this right in the center at the front on the raised panel. I'm going to place that with some hot glue, and now of course we need a walkway from our gate to our house. To do that, I'm going to use some hot glue and some Dollar Tree decorative stones. I'm going to place a few at the treehouse first, then at the gate, and I can work my way from one side to the other, creating a curve. If you want to go back and make your pathway wider, you can always add some additional rocks. And for some added color, I'm going to take some of that Aleene's tacky glue and glue a little bit of moss in between the rocks. This is also going to help hide any of the hot glue that you may be able to see. Make sure you wipe off any of that excess reindeer moss, and then I'm going to use my little mini vacuum to clean that up. Now we can attach our ladder directly from the rocks to the door, and this is how it's looking so far. Now we can add some more pops of color and cuteness. From Dollar General, we have this wishing well. Also from Dollar General, I'm adding a bird bath I thought would sit perfectly right in front of the wishing well. I want to add some height to the back corner, so I'm going to use this larger piece from Dollar General. This is how it's looking so far. This is so much fun. You can get so creative and add so many different items in here. Now, I wanted my base to stay that natural wood, but you could fill it up with moss, do whatever you like. I added in a tiny beehive, a little welcome sign, and a wheelbarrow, and now we're going to add in some of Dollar Tree's ladybugs and bumblebees. I did peel the stickers off the back because I want all of my pieces to sit flat, and I just added those for pops of color and extra cuteness. At the last minute, I decided that I wanted to add something in this empty space right here, so I grabbed one of Dollar Tree's succulents, pulled that out of the pot. I'm going to trim the stem down, and then I glued some rocks to make sure I could hold it all in place. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you have a favorite fairy garden out of today's projects, please let me know in the comment section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I'll see you guys next time.